Hello, welcome back to my channel. So I want to talk about Lindsey and Blaine in this last episode of Life After Lockup. So Lindsey in the last episode, she finds out from her daughter, Miley Grace, while she's wedding dress shopping, that Blaine has been talking all sorts of smack on Lindsey to not only Miley Grace, but Miley Grace's grandmother. Basically having adult conversations with Lindsey's teenage daughter, and she played the camera footage back, and Lindsey heard everything he was saying and what he was doing, and she was ticked off. She was so pissed off, she paraded right outside the wedding dress store in her wedding dress and all, and even the ladies who worked there was like, did this girl really just walk out in that wedding dress? And she's trying to hold it up, it's still part of it's dragging on the ground, just completely disrespecting the wedding dress. And she calls Blaine, and Blaine doesn't answer, and she's like, man, you need to get home right now. And she goes inside and tells her friend that her and Blaine need to talk. And then while she's in the dressing room taking off this wedding dress, she randomly decided to call up her parole officer and tells her parole officer that Blaine got a medical marijuana card and asked if that's okay. And he was like, no, you're on federal probation. If he has a medical card, he has to move out immediately. And I really questioned Lindsey's timing with this whole phone call to her parole officer. Why call your parole officer right then and there while you're wedding dress shopping in the dressing room? I would have went home, talked to Blaine first, then called him later. But I feel like the reason she decided to do it then is because she feel like she knew she did not want Blaine at her place anymore. Like she said, she felt like there's no coming back from this. And you know, it takes a minute to evict someone. It can take 30 plus days. So I feel like Lindsey wanted to speed that process up and get him out that day. And the only way Lindsey knew how to do that was to call her parole officer and snitch on Blaine that he has the medical card. Which I don't even remember Blaine actually saying that he had a card. I just remember him saying that his doctor recommended it. Hell, Blaine should have called Lindsey's parole officer and been like, hey, I want to get permission if it's okay for her to drive around and collect drug debts since we're getting permission for everything. So Lindsey and her push-up bra, they're just looking for a reason to get Blaine out of the house. That's how I feel. And seriously though, her titties just look like they're pushed up so high. They look like one is about to pop out at any given moment. So Lindsey goes back home and she pulls up at the house, and next thing you know, Blaine pulls up and he's driving a truck that's pulling a four-wheeler in the back. And Lindsey's like, what is this? And he said that he went and dropped $800 on this four-wheeler because he had a really good deal. And Lindsey was like, okay, so what is this supposed to do for us? He's like, oh, well, this is what we can all use for our family to have fun on. And she's like, well, me and Miley aren't about to use that. And he's like, well, this is for me and my son. And she was like, look, so I just dropped all this money on this engagement necklace, and she said she spent $200 on the necklace, and she's like, and you're just buying a four-wheeler when you haven't even got me a ring. And do you guys remember when she first got that necklace, how the show made it sound like she spent $200 on it? And she was in a Facebook group saying, I paid $2,200 for that. I have no idea why they edited the price to make it sound like $200. But in this episode, again, she said out of her own mouth that she spent $200 on that necklace. And I even went back and rewinded the episode a good 4 or 5 times and made sure that she said $200. Someone pointed that out in a Facebook group, and Lindsey responded when someone said she could easily settle this. A piece like that, you usually have a receipt, and if you're smart, a warranty. And Lindsey said, it's in my safety deposit box, but I gotta run to town Tuesday to take my cat to the vet, so I'll grab it then. So I guess I just have to stay tuned and see if she brings the receipt. I feel like the real reason that Blaine has not bought Lindsey a ring yet is because he's not ready to marry her. They still have a long list of problems that they need to work on. And like he said in the past, every single time they fight, Lindsey packs her bags and she tries to leave every single time. And it's not healthy to run off every time you have a fight in a marriage. Then Lindsey brought up what she really wanted to talk about, and that was Blaine going and talking bad about her to not only her teenage daughter, but her mother. Well, not her, legal mother, but what she calls her mother. And even Lindsey's friends. Everybody is saying, oh yeah, Blaine has been talking smack on you. And Lindsey was like, you got all these things to say about me. Why don't you say it to my face? And I feel like a lot of the reason why Blaine is venting to everybody else is because he feels like he can't talk to Lindsey. And I feel like he probably feels like he really doesn't have anybody else. And he's trying to go to people who know Lindsey so they can try to give him the best advice. But still, that's no excuse for him to be talking about adult conversations with her teenage daughter. That is completely out of line and should not be happening. And she's like, look, also you got to pack your bags because my parole officer said that you cannot live here anymore. And when Blaine heard that, oh my gosh, I swear to God, I could see smoke coming out of his ears. He was pissed. He could not believe that Lindsey had snitched on him to her PO. And she's like, well, what do you expect me to do? It's part of my regulations. But Blaine was begging Lindsey. He's like, what do I gotta do in order to stay here and make things right? I'll do anything. And Lindsey really didn't have any answers for him. And he's like, damn, I really gotta move out. So he starts grabbing all his stuff. And I feel bad because not only is he probably gonna move out, but his son's probably gonna have to move out too. I mean, he may stay behind, but I don't see that happening with Lindsey working so much because who's going to be there to watch him if Blaine's not allowed to be there? So he gets all his stuff together, and Lindsey is yelling at him saying, now you can just run off and do whatever you want to do now. You can smoke all the weed you want. And I did not like how she framed that because it kind of sounded like, oh, now you can just run off and do all the drugs you want to do. And it's like when this man has came so far and he's sober, and yes, smoking weed may be frowned upon with your federal probation, but he's still doing a lot better than he was years ago. So at least give the man some credit. I just felt like that was out of line, especially knowing how much this man is saying he's depressed. He's literally crying out for help. And you just saying things like that, that's going to push him to run off and use. So he starts packing his bags, getting ready, and she's screaming at him, and she's like, I just want to know, what did I do to you that was so bad? And then Blaine looked back at her at a face I had never seen Blaine look like before. He looked like a toddler after you take their favorite toy away. He just blew up and he said, how about you running off with a married effing man? And Lindsey's whole mouth just dropped. So I'm pretty sure the instance he was referring to is back when her and Blaine were early on in the relationship while her season of her and Deontay was still on, but she was with Blaine in current time. Well, that season, WeTV decided to fly all the cast members out to California to do a photo shoot. I apologize for the people who've heard me explain this before, but this is for the new people who may not be aware. So they go out and they do this photo shoot, and that's also when they had the drama because Deontay was with Cece at the time, and the producers were still making him pretend like he was with Lindsey on Instagram, and Lindsey made him take a picture with her with a date because people kept commenting on her old photos she was posting of her and Deontay saying, oh, these are old. So she's like, oh, take a picture so we can prove we're still together, even though they weren't. So while they're out there, Deontay was with Cece, and Cece was clearly jealous because they were staying in the same hotel together, and Deontay still kind of had feelings for Lindsey and was talking to her. So Cece wanted to get a lot of updates from Deontay. Me and Deontay are pretty close, and he was even messaging me, venting to me about how, Cece was freaking out after he posted that picture because, she just felt like he was sweeping her under the rug, and, she wants to see her man claim her instead of claiming Lindsey. So he was asking me for advice. So I was like, Deontay, If I was you, I'd be taking as many pictures and videos as possible and sending her updates, share your location, or whatever you feel comfortable with, so you can show, look, Cece, I'm not with Lindsey right now. Look at what I'm doing. And that's exactly what he did. So they end up going to this bar and they all start drinking, and he keeps making all these video updates to send to Cece, and Cece was still freaking out, like, oh, you're probably hanging out with Lindsey. So Deontay took this video where Lindsey was making out with this married man at the bar and saying, look, you don't have nothing to worry about. She's at this bar hanging out and making out with this random guy. You can see the guy has a wedding band on, and she tried to tell me when I asked her about this that this guy grabbed her and pulled her in, but it doesn't really look like she's trying to pull away. It looks more like she's pulling into the kiss more than pulling away. So Deontay sent that to Cece. She ended up posting that clip, and she was pretty much just embarrassing Blaine this whole trip. The whole cast knew she was with Blaine, but she was hanging out with Deontay, and she even went back to Deontay's hotel room afterwards. And at the time, Deontay didn't tell Cece this, but this is something he later on admitted, that Blaine was calling Lindsey all night long, and she was sitting there lying to him, saying that she was in her own room, when really she was in the same room with Deontay, wasted. And apparently she got so wasted, not only did she make out with a random married man at the bar, but she also threw up in the Uber, and she was doing all kinds of other crazy stuff. If you look closely, you can see Kevin right next to them as they're making out with each other. So it's like she has no shame at all. She's not trying to hide it. Just pretty much embarrassing Blaine. And I'm pretty sure this is the incident they're talking about, unless she had another incident with a married man that we don't know about. But I'm pretty sure it's this one, because she ended up doing a cameo with somebody around Christmas, and they posted on Reddit, and Lindsey said that stay tuned because her and Blaine are really going to go get into it, because he found some stuff on Reddit that made him upset. And I remember when Deontay's girl Cece posted that clip of Lindsey making out with this dude, that was on the front page of Reddit when it came out. I mean, I would be depressed, like Blaine said, if I was in his shoes too, and I had this building up. I feel like Lindsey and him probably had some agreement, because I'm sure all these couples don't show their true skeletons in their closet. A lot of these couples are saying, okay, let's not bring this up. And I'm sure Lindsey probably told Blaine, let's not bring this up, and I won't bring this up. And you could tell that Blaine had just finally had enough, and he did not care anymore, and that's why Lindsey looked so shocked when he finally said it. But really, this is the tea we want to see. I've been wondering why this hasn't been brought up. I want to hear about the real tea that's going on. I don't want to see all this fake stuff they've been doing all season. I want to get to the bottom of her making out with that married man, and I want to get to the bottom of things like Quaylin getting arrested. Yes, Quaylin getting arrested happened after they were probably done filming, but just like what happened with Taylor and Chance, after they were done filming, they sent a crew out, and that's when the drama started really happening, when they weren't making them do these fake manufactured storylines. And I feel like they should do the same, like when he was arrested, for example. But at the end of the season, I doubt they'll probably even give us an update saying that, or to talk about his boyfriend that he had, his little prison lover. And for you guys who are staying tuned for that story that I dropped yesterday, I got more receipts from his prison lover today, and we got some pictures, but I'm waiting on more receipts tomorrow. His grandpa or his grandmother just passed away, so he's been dealing with a lot, but he's getting more receipts tomorrow. And stay tuned for that video, because it should come tomorrow or the next day, and it's a lot of tea. I promise you it's gonna be worth the wait. But that's it for this video, guys. Let me know what you guys think about everything in the comments below. Check out my lashes and cosmetics at AccordingtoAmber.com. Give this video a thumbs up, subscribe, and thank you so much for watching.